We finally made it to Egypt. It's been on our bucket list for a long time, postponed by the terrorist attacks, the Arab Spring, political unrest, and COVID. We fly over the brown suburbs of Cairo, a massive city of over 22 million people in the greater metropolitan area, which makes it the 12th largest in the world by population. Looks like it's just grown out of the desert. It is strange to see so much vacant land alongside high-rise buildings. We'll have to ask our guide about that. Here we are, safely on the ground at Cairo International Airport, the busiest in Africa in terms of the number of passengers. Time to get oriented. We're in Cairo, the capital of Egypt. It's located on the Nile River at the start of the Nile Delta. At this trip, we'll be following the Nile upstream, almost to the border with Sudan. After landing at the airport in the northeast of the city, we're headed to our hotel in the trendy Mahdi district in the south. Traffic in Cairo is crazy. I'm glad I don't have to drive. I'm also relieved that our hotel is not in one of those brown buildings we flew over. Mahdi district is a leafy suburb about 7.5 miles upriver from downtown. We're staying at the Villa Bella Epoch, built in the 1920s and recently remodeled. All the rooms are named after an Egyptian city. Ours is Rosetta, where the Rosetta Stone was found. We're here a day early to relax and get over our jet lag, and this looks like a good place to do that. Another pleasant surprise, the chef at the tiny restaurant at the Villa Belle Epoch puts out some great food. And some really decadent desserts. The next morning, we meet our guide Salah and head for the Egyptian Museum. Here we get our first of many Egyptology lessons. Humans have been living on the Nile since at least 6200 BC. It took another 3,000 years, though, for the hunter-gatherers to settle down and farm, and then villages to become towns and cities, and organization was needed. The first kings appeared in 3100 BCE, and this became known as the pre-dynastic period. Salah said, here's a way to think about those 3,000 years. There were periods of growth and stability and conquest. These were called kingdoms. They're interspersed with periods of instability, political intrigue, and contraction, called the intermediate periods. Each period had multiple dynasties, identified by Roman numerals. Following the third intermediate period, Egypt was conquered by Persians, Greeks, and Romans in turn. The collection of the Egyptian Museum is overwhelming, especially considering this is only a fraction of the total collection. But we wade in and with Salah's help, see if we can make sense of all its wonders. Artifacts from the pre-dynastic period, more than 5,000 years ago, are rare. But we do know that King Narmer was the first king of a unified Egypt, and that hieroglyphics were well developed by this time. This stone shows King Narmer wearing the crown of the Upper Nile while vanquishing his enemy. On the other side of the stone, the king is wearing the crown of the Lower Nile and following his standard bearers to inspect the decapitated corpses of his enemies. The Old Kingdom period, roughly between 2700 and 2200 BCE, is known as the Age of the Pyramids. At the Egyptian Museum, we can look into the faces of the builders of the pyramids. This is King Dahshur, who built the radically new step pyramid at Saqqara. The Fourth Dynasty was a time of peace and prosperity, so Egypt's rulers turned their attention to pyramid building. King Snefru's first attempt at a true pyramid was the bent pyramid. It had too high an angle. His second attempt, the Red Pyramid, was successful. Sneferu's son, Khufu, built the Great Pyramid of Giza. Khofru's son, Khafra, built the second largest pyramid at Giza, next to his father's, and he also built the Great Sphinx. Khafre's son, Memqare, built the smallest of the three major pyramids at Giza. Pyramid building continued into the 5th dynasty with Pharaoh Userkaf, but they didn't stand the test of time. Sculptors were adept at capturing the faces of the pharaohs, but they also used wood to capture realistic life-size images of nobles and common people. After a chaotic 125 years of the First Intermediate Period, the reunification of Egypt brought the start of the Middle Kingdom period. Military campaigns in Nubia, Libya, and Sinai, and diplomatic relations with Syria and Canaan brought prosperity to Egypt. The building of the monumental temples and tombs began in Thebes. Mentuhotep II reunited the Upper and Lower Nile, which brought an end to the First Intermediate Period. He built the first temple tomb in the Theban necropolis. Senusret I ruled in a time of prosperity and established diplomatic relations with Syria and Canaan, and expanded the southern border. He began the temple complex at Karnak. Amenemhat III inherited a stable and peaceful Egypt, which reached a cultural and economic zenith during his reign. Amenemhat III built the Black Pyramid at Dahshur. The pyramidion, or capstone of the Black Pyramid, survives in the Egyptian Museum today. The New Kingdom period began with the reunification of Egypt after the chaotic infighting of the Second Intermediate Period. It was the most prosperous time for the Egyptian people and marked the peak of Egypt's power. Hatshepsut was the second female pharaoh. Her reign was a period of great prosperity and peace. She was a prolific builder, including the Karnak temple complex and her mortuary temple. During the reign of Amenhotep III, Egypt reached the peak of its artistic and international power. He extended the temple at Karnak. Akhenaten is famous for abandoning Egypt's traditional polytheism for a single god, Aten, depicted as the disk of the sun. Atenism was Egypt's state religion for about 20 years. Subsequent pharaohs restored the traditional religion after his death. Nefertiti was the great royal wife of Pharaoh Akhenaten. Tutankhamun took the throne at age 9 and ruled until age 19. He's famous today because, unlike other tombs in Egypt, his was not robbed and was discovered intact with a treasure trove of burial goods. Ramses II is considered ancient Egypt's most successful warrior pharaoh. Also, he was a builder of cities, temples, and monuments, including the temple at Abu Simbel. This colossal statue was originally found in 6 pieces in a temple near Memphis. It was reconstructed and erected in Ramses Square in Cairo in 1955. By 2006, it was deteriorating due to the exhaust fumes, so it was relocated to the new Grand Egyptian Museum. From 525 BCE, foreign powers ruled Egypt. The son of Cyrus the Great of Persia, Cambyses II, conquered Egypt in 525. In 305 BCE, Alexander the Great conquered Egypt, and the Ptolemaic dynasties began. Cleopatra VII was the last Ptolemaic ruler. Her interaction and intrigues with Caesar and Mark Antony have since become the stuff of plays and movies. She died in 30 BCE. Then, Egypt became a province of the Roman Empire. The foreign rulers embraced the Egyptian culture and religion. This relief of the god Horus as a young child was from this period. It was used to make spells to ward off evil. Statuary took on a Greek style. This bust is of Niobe, the patron goddess of Thebes. Golden jewelry mixed Egyptian with Roman gods. Now for a change, let's look at some everyday items, like this painted floor from the Palace of Akhenaten. There's an interesting gallery at the Egyptian Museum dedicated to everyday items, like these dolls. These are cases and applicators for kohl, an eyeliner makeup. What could be more everyday than a toilet seat? These beautiful fragments are from a fresco in a residence. The halls of the Egyptian Museum are lined with coffins and sarcophagi. Much of what we know about ancient Egypt is due to their fixation on death and the afterlife. The first thing a pharaoh did upon taking the throne was to engage architects, engineers, and artisans to build his mortuary temple and tomb. Decoration on sarcophagi give us glimpses of daily life, as offerings are prepared to sustain the deceased into the afterlife. Inside the sarcophagi are often detailed instructions on how to make the journey to the afterlife. These texts are a window into Egyptian religion, language, and culture. The nested caskets each bear a likeness of the person, giving us another view of what Egyptians looked like in antiquity. Mummification was a well-developed art even in the Old Kingdom period. Take a close look at this face. She is Tuya, mother of Queen Tia. On the left is Tuya's casket mask. Note the resemblance. As part of the mummification process, the internal organs are removed. This is the canopic shrine for Tutankhamun. Inside are nested containers holding his internal organs. These little miniature caskets are ushabti. They're placed in the grave to serve the deceased in the afterlife. Much of what we know about Egyptian chariots and ships are from burial goods. A false door was included in the mortuary temple or tomb. It served as a place to deliver offerings and to recite prayers for the deceased. The Ka statue is intended to house the Ka, or vital essence, of the deceased after it's left the body at death. Then, after 70 days, the deceased is laid to rest in their tomb surrounded by burial goods to help them on their journey into the afterlife. The pyramids of Giza, the only surviving wonder of the ancient world, are the most famous of the pyramids. There are 9 pyramids at Giza, 3 major ones for the pharaohs, and 6 smaller ones for their queens. The oldest and tallest is the Great Pyramid, built by Khufu in the early 26th century over a period of 27 years. It stands 480 feet tall. You really can't appreciate how big these pyramids are until you get up close. The second tallest, at 448 feet, is the Pyramid of Khafre, Khufu's son and successor. It's the only one that has retained some of its casing stones at the top. The pyramid sits on bedrock 33 feet higher than Khufu's pyramid, so it appears taller. The Pyramid of Menkaure is the smallest of the 3 at 215 feet. Near the pyramids is the Great Sphinx, built by Khafre during his reign. Contrary to popular myth, the Sphinx's nose was not broken off by cannon fire from Napoleon's troops. It was defaced with chisels earlier. On the east side of the Great Pyramid is this pit, which contained a ship 142 feet long and 19 feet wide, intended to take Khufu across the heavens with the sun god Ra. The pyramids of Giza are the best known, the tallest, and the largest, but are not the oldest. That honor goes to the pyramids of Sakkara and Dahshur, south of Giza. The Step Pyramid was built by King Dahshur in the 27th century. At 205 feet tall, it was the earliest large-scale cut stone construction made by man. It's the focal point of a mortuary complex with a large courtyard surrounded by ceremonial structures. The complex also contains several Old Kingdom tombs with beautiful bas-relief carvings. This wall has realistic images of fish, crocodiles, hippos, and birds. Here a cow is being slaughtered and the parts offered to the gods. This wall may depict a naval battle with the dark-skinned Nubians. The next experiment in pyramid building is the bent pyramid at Dahshur. It was built by Pharaoh Sneferu about 2600 BCE. Initial inclination was 54 degrees, but that must have proved unworkable, so the inclination was changed to 43 degrees, giving the pyramid a bent appearance. Sneferu's builders learned their lesson and built the red pyramid with an inclination of 43 degrees. It's the third largest pyramid in Egypt, after those of Khufu and Khafre in Giza. The fascinating history of Egypt is a complex mosaic of fertile land supporting military campaigns and monumental building projects, led by pharaohs weak and strong, guided by an ever-evolving religion.